Forge greatness, this is what you need. Next level marketplace with the NFT. Music, podcasts, movies, and more. Crypto games, take it to the next level for sure. Or system, or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Or system, or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. To my movie makers and musicians, time to level up. Bring your content, even all my game developers. We got movie streaming, music streaming, so you wanna be in the mix. This ain't no big production company. Over 25,000 or users, yes indeed. Only charging 2.3% sales fee. Own all your music, all your games, own your future. Set your own terms. This is how you do it. You need or system, or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Or system, or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Let's go. Forge greatness. Woo.
The OR token is not a security. The OR token is not a stock. It is a video game token and is used for in-game purchases in OR-supported websites, video games, and the OR Forge NFT marketplace. No ownership guarantees a percentage of any ownership of OR Systems Inc., any video games, content, media productions, or other, until options are extended. OR Systems Inc. is a privately owned and operated organization that utilizes blockchain technologies and provides real-world value to the intrinsic video game currency. As such, please ensure you approach the OR token at your own discretion. No one involved in this video is a financial advisor.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on, Armando, Sean, Lucas?
Live on the
I hope you can hear me okay. I mean, it's episode 58. It's episode 58
Loud
of
and
the
clear.
Warrior Hour. As you can tell, Jimmy's not here, so guess who's trying to produce this thing?
Armando, and you're doing a bang-up job.
What has two thumbs trying to produce? This guy.
Bang up job.
Eric, Sean, Lucas, thank you so much. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Lucas, for using the right backdrop. Really appreciate it. Just saying, but and also the millions and billions of warriors right now, or the 890 watching us live. Thank you for joining us for episode 58. Whoa, February 1st. What happened to January? Where'd it go?
I don't know, gone.
Right.
Gone.
That quick, Colin.
Come-
Couple
come
blinks and it
gone.
was over with.
I swear I was just saying Happy New Year like yesterday,
Yeah.
and I'm still writing the date wrong. So as you can tell, I'm way behind. But yeah, so it's been a crazy week here at the OR. So I guess what's been going on this past week? What kind of shenanigans have been going on?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot
Good
of
enough. All
talking
right.
to
Just kidding.
some networks, really just networking and updating some strategy and documentation early in the week.
Very nice.
It was a good week. We had contact with a lot of former acquaintances and current friends, and we're getting some things energized. Again, things are starting to line up for us, man. Pretty happy, but we had a successful week, and I think we're in for some big things this year, and we're hitting our stride.
Cool.
You know what I feel like? I know we've said this before, but it's just everything catching up, man. I know we got here early to the party, as I know I've heard Sean and Lucas say a lot. But you're not kidding about that, because now I have a lot of people that are now starting to asking a lot of questions about stuff that it's like, yeah, we were working on that last year or even a year and a half ago. So it's kind of cool to watch technology starting to catch up slowly but surely. So I think it's all headed in the right direction, and I'm pretty excited.
I'm pretty excited to talk to tonight's guest. I think it's going to be a one of those blow your mind conversations. Really looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, and
Really
speaking of guests, we
heady
have
conversations.
we have James Nguyen, and or Win, and Ken Dobell from Quantropi. So I was on there, I was perusing their site. I had to go on their YouTube to make sure I was saying the name right. But no, I'm pretty excited as well. Ah, man. So, and I see that Ken is here already. We're give him a little bit here. So you know what I'm going to do? I know we're a little bit early, but I'm going to a commercial here. Give us some time, and we'll let Ken in.
All right.
Be right back.
Sounds
Stay
good.
with us. Be right back.
Yeah, remember when people used to say that? Sean, hosts, stay tuned. Be right back. Yeah, it's such an 80s thing, man.
You know what I remember, man, from Wheel of Fortune. Remember Chuck Woolery? He'd always say,
Oh, yeah,
be back in 2 and 2.
2
I
and
think
2.
he was on the Rope Connection after that. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, Ken. How you
Hi,
doing, sir?
Ken. How's it going?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Good. We're at a
Doing well.
commercial. We're at about 15 seconds. So, do you know if James is coming in a little bit, or
James is not going to make it because
Okay.
he's down sick.
Down
So
sick.
you're
Oh,
stuck
wow.
with me.
all right?
Sorry to
So
hear.
not a problem. We have 3, 2, 1, and all right. So
All right.
Ken, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, and for those those just joining us, we have Ken, and forgive me, is it Dobell?
Yes, you got it right.
Perfect, from Quantropi.
You got that right too.
All right, see what happens when you watch your YouTube channel. I get the name right on the first time. So, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we value, I know time is money, and I know time is valuable. So, thank you so much for spending some time here at the Warrior Hour. If you can tell us a little bit about Quantropi and how it was founded.
All right. Well, Quantropi is about just coming up on 5 years old. In fact, I think we just passed our 5-year anniversary. And it's
Congrats.
a Canadian, thank you, a Canadian startup based out of Ottawa, which is the capital. And it's an unlikely company in some ways because it's really based off an idea, you know, and I guess a lot of realizations. So there is something looming around the corner, which I think we're going to get a chance to talk about, called Y2Q. And it's basically a meteor hurtling towards the Earth as we speak. And a few people, soon to be a lot of people, are starting to freak out. It's a little bit like Y2K all over again, but a whole lot worse and without a set timeline. And then what happened with Quantropi was a lady met this fellow, Randy Kwong, Dr. Radney Kwong, who's our chief scientist and the co-founder, met James Nguyen, who's our CEO, who wasn't able to join us today, who's the businessman. And they realized that between the two of them, they had an answer to a problem that is essentially threatening the $50 trillion global economy. So it's a huge, huge, huge TAM. We're talking about $1 trillion that's going to be spent. If Y2K was worth 100 billion, this is worth $1 trillion over the coming decades. And there are not a lot of great solutions. We think we have the one.
Oh,
That's,
Wow.
okay. I'm
that's
freaking out.
exciting. All right. I'm intrigued.
No big deal, right?
No big deal.
Just a
Yeah,
couple,
you know,
just a trillion? Oh, pfft.
No big deal.
All right, we're
One
fine.
Wow.
trillion. Man.
Yeah.
Maybe my mouth is open here, but well, while you were talking, Ken, I had images of Bruce Willis, flying up to the asteroid, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got to be honest.
gotta
with
get
you.
800 feet at
Little
least.
Aerosmith in the background. Yep.
It's not the first time we've thought about, I think, characterizing this as the League of Justice or something. I mean, in a way it is that big, right? If you think about the internet, our digital society, our digital lives, we're talking about I guess 1 trillion to 3 trillion transactions a day, right? Every email you send, every phone call you make, every ping on your Ring doorbell. I mean, every one of these things has to move from A to B, or has to be stored somewhere. And all of those things are held together today by something, called cryptography, that is just an accepted, that nobody thinks about it because it's a standard. We have AES that controls the way that we encrypt. It's like the Brinks truck. When we move information from point A to point B, we wrap it in something called AES 256, and people say that's secure. When we set up an initial handshake to do anything on the transport layer, moving an email or something like that, we use something called RSA. And for 30 years, people have said it's not even worth thinking about, because the math problems, it's NP hard, the math problems that these keys are based on are so hard to solve, it would take a computer 100,000 years. And good enough. But then along comes a quantum computer, maybe, that can solve it in 8 seconds.
Wow.
So it's kind of everything that's at play. And when we talk about Y2Q, we're really talking about all of known cryptography being suddenly vulnerable. And to make it worse, we don't have to wait for Y2Q. So there's a raging debate, which I'd be happy to get into, about when is it going to happen. But, to be clear, first of all, it's not going to happen like, oh, we get a news story tomorrow morning that says Y2Q happened overnight and all of a sudden everything's changed. There are other thresholds between now and then. But more to the point, it doesn't actually matter, because people are already stealing information that they can't decrypt, and they know they can't decrypt it. And it doesn't matter, because they're going to sit on it and wait until they can, because a lot of stuff has to legally be kept private or secret for 25, 50, 75 years. And it's not like your one purchase on an e-commerce site. It's like your banking information. It needs to stay safe for a long time. So if someone steals that, then they don't have to crack it yet. They could just wait until they get a quantum computer that's capable of cracking it, and then crack it. And so you might already be dead and you don't even know it.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
What?
Oh, good.
What kind of? Yeah.
Kind of letting that one sink in a little bit on our end. It's like there's some time warp here or something.
And before we get any further,
Ken, you have the right idea. A glass of wine
I
before
know.
that video hits.
So what's on tap this evening?
Just trying to cope with the stress of it all.
Of course.
Red wine's
What are you guys doing to get the word out to people about this? How are you communicating these concerns with businesses who may not be aware of it?
So there's a few things, because first of all, there's a lot of money to be made. And so, I think the systems integrators, the consulting firms, they're starting to circle around because they smell the money. And I think, it's probably most of the economy of India was made off the back of Y2K. I mean, we're talking about, or Accenture was kind of launched off the back of Y2K. I think this is similar. There are a lot of industries lining up to implement some kind of diagnostic or Y2K compliance Y2Q compliance or Y2Q readiness. They talk about hashtag quantum ready boards. I mean, there is a big industry waiting to bloom behind just how do we prepare for this. So that's number one. Number two is that it's a challenge of approach. So, you know, when we're talking about Y2Q, I think it's kind of an aha, or maybe for some of the people listening, it's an aha. Like we weren't aware that this was lurking in the background or looming on the horizon. But for the smart money, it's not a surprise. I mean, this has been known about for a long time. This has been discussed for a long time. Some people have made a reputation off of saying, hey, it's not going to come till 2028, 2032, 2048, 2050, whatever. I think one of the things that's happening now is that timeline is accelerating very fast. So people who thought that we had a certain amount of time left for certain things, the doomsday clock is ticking. But also, it's coming down to, how do you actually get ahead of this thing? If I am, the Biden administration has already in the last 60 days passed a bill that says if you do business with the U.S. government, you have to have a plan to transition to post-quantum cryptography. If you look at some of the activities that are happening with researchers around the world, they're starting to move this timeline closer. But it's not a surprise for everybody. And I think what is a surprise is maybe that you didn't move fast enough. Like if we're talking about even if asymmetric falls and symmetric is good for another 8 years, it's like, really, you want half a life preserver? Like, you don't want to be ready, 100% ready. You don't want to be in front of this. And it's a marketing opportunity too. If would I like to be the first person or the first brand or the first institution in my space to be quantum ready or Y2Q compliant? I think so. And what's happening right now is that the rumors are starting, the buzz is starting. People are very shortly going to say, hey, what can I do? How can I prepare? I've heard about phishing. I've heard about, different kinds of scams and hacks and breaches. What can I do to prepare? And the answer is, well, you can't do anything directly to prepare, but what you can do is put pressure on your institutions, put pressure on your government, put pressure on your brands, put pressure on your bank. Like, remember Enron, no trust, no bank. And that's the challenge now, is when this stuff starts to happen, it's not that all of a sudden everyone is, breached. It's that all of a sudden it's a factor. It's like, I don't want to put my money in a bank that isn't quantum secure. Do you?
Yeah. So when you mentioned the governments, that was actually a follow-up question I had. Do you think they're taking this threat to critical infrastructure seriously at this point? And kind of as you unpack that, from your seat and what you've seen, creating fear in trusted systems is one of those things that really gets people's mind spinning. So can you talk a little bit to what you've seen so far as critical infrastructure protection, and maybe what the average person can do, if anything?
Well, to tackle the first thing first, or the last thing first, I mean, I don't know that there's a lot you can do except to really understand that it's a new era, right? So we're used to things, and I guess this isn't maybe everybody, but this is some businesses and some some sectors. We're used to upgrading all the time at the software end, at the user end. We get an update and we implement the update, and we don't think twice about it. But we never update security. We just take it for granted, right? Now, I think we're entering an era of crypto agility where nobody trusts anything anymore, and rightly so. So that even NIST, who's the standards body on this, the regulatory body on this, they have already said there's not going to be one standard. Initially they said there would. Now they're saying no, there won't be a standard for encryption post-quantum cryptography. There'll be different standards, and you may need several. You may need to double wrap. You might need to change on a dime. And this is the kind of world I think that we're heading into now. And so we have to be ready to, in a nonstop way, to change, because we don't know what the threats are. And what we've always, and because it's a different kind of math, right? We've always relied on, this is a really, really, really hard problem to solve. And so the math is going to take, 100,000 years, even for a really big supercomputer. But now what we're saying is, it's not that kind of problem. There are, it's probabilistic, and quantum computers aren't 100 million times faster at everything. They're only 100 million times faster at certain things. Cryptography just happens to be one of them. And so, when I think, to the first part of your question, are people acting fast enough, or are governments acting fast enough? Are businesses acting fast enough? I think the answer is clearly no, because I told you the Biden administration's passed a law. That's great. I think it's very timely. It's very relevant. But the U.S. government isn't exactly considered on the bleeding edge of technology, right? So if they're acting, something's going on. And I think if you talk to folks like Department of Homeland Security or others, they probably sound like they know something you don't. Yeah. Because they're starting to ask you to do things like, I'll give you one example. There's guidance now that says in the US government, we recommend that you print out those documents and sign them wet signature and store them somewhere. Not necessarily because the electronic signature isn't good, but you may need a backup. And we may need some kind of validated backup format like paper and pen, because in the new future, people are going to start to question things. Like, it doesn't matter whether I've managed to breach your digital signature. What happens if I just doubt that that's your signature or claim that that's not your signature? You need a backup. All of a sudden, the stuff we trusted isn't actually real anymore.
So burden of proof really falls to the individual at that point.
I think so. And I think so much of this comes back to trust and truth. It's like that Marshall McLuhan thing about the medium is the message. For us, it's about, we trust in the integrity of the medium and the truth of the message. This is really that basic. Like, if you can't believe that the person, and we're getting there, like, we already realize this, I think, in so many areas of our lives, we won't get into politics, but I mean, I think we already realize that there's a problem with, who do we trust to tell the truth and who are the truth
Authenticity.
tellers, right? This is part of that. It's like if we can't stamp all this stuff and ensure that it's getting from point A to point B without being compromised, and that it's actually from the sender that we thought it was, and that it's still the thing that we thought it was sending, it's out. It's over, right? What do we do?
Right. And I think, distributed ledger technology currently solves some of those problems, and it's to some, cutting edge. As you start talking about quantum, which is yet again another factor of 10, more powerful and faster, people are just now starting to get their head wrapped around distributed ledger technology. And so when you talk to the average person about quantum computing, the slot machine kind of starts running a little bit. It's really tough to get that point across because you don't know how trust relationships are going to be managed in the future when you can't really trust anything around you. That's a trustless society like we have sort of in the distributed ledger technology world right now.
That's right.
People are not used to that relationship.
Right.
They're used to banks being a trust authority. I trust you with my transaction, therefore you are the authority. And with that authority comes a heck of a lot of power. So I think the people in the decentralized world right now really sort of can wrap their head a little more around what you're talking about. But people who haven't made that leap yet are going to have a little harder time.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think it's true too that, we don't realize how much faith we put in all of these simple transactions or simple mechanisms. And one of the things that we're really excited about, so if I can do my little advertisement here, Quantropi, the difference is, and let's just back up for a second because there are kind of two big alternative approaches going on in the world, and it's a bit of a Europe versus North America thing in some ways too, is that there's quantum key distribution, or QKD, as a solution to this problem, and that is actually a physical solution, and it's a bit of a science experiment. It says we're going to move stuff with actual photons, particles of light, and don't get me wrong, that stuff is extremely secure. It is infinitely secure because it is truly quantum. The problem is you basically need a whole new internet to support it. Like it goes today, I don't know, 20 kilometers or something, and you get one photon at the end that hasn't fizzled. So it's great, but it's not going to happen in the next 30 years, if maybe 70, or our lifetimes, I don't know. So that's not in many ways a very practical solution. The alternative is all the stuff that NIST is really focusing on, which is the post-quantum cryptography, or PQC, which is algorithmic. And algorithmic is great because you don't need all that expense. You don't need dark fiber or new dark fiber. You don't need a big investment in new infrastructure and so forth. But the problem with that is we're not even out of the gate yet, and people are already saying, well, is it that good? Like there are just in the last month, probably 3 different papers coming out of China, coming out of Australia, coming out of Germany, where people are, if you're a geek, we could talk about Shor's algorithm, but it's not even that. We don't even need that, as it turns out. It might be possible to crack RSA 2048 just with, a really crappy quantum computer, and that hasn't been optimized, with a different algorithm, and all these things are promising. They're just all paths towards what we know is coming anyway, but it just indicates that we might be past the point where we have to find the answer as a innovation aha, and maybe it's down to engineering, because humans are really good at engineering. So if the problem is just like how to make things a bit, it's like the 4-minute mile, right? It takes forever to break it, but once you've broken it, then the rest just starts snowballing. Well, that's kind of where we're at with all this stuff. And what we've done at Quantropi is we've said two things. One, it is absolutely an information system. So, just because you got to theoretically move a particle of light around doesn't mean you actually have to do it. You could just create the algorithm that mimics that. But secondly, it's not good enough to solve for the thing that is at the front end of the threat, which is the asymmetric encryption, which is the initial handshake, the trust. That's what everyone's kind of focused on right now because it's already coming apart. You don't want half a life preserver. You also have to focus on the symmetric, which is communication, the actual transfer of that data. And you have to focus on the strong keys, which is the quantum entropy or the really good random, and so we look at the market and we see people focusing on one of those things or maybe two of those things, but not all three. And we say it has to be true for trust, uncertainty, and entropy in order for it to actually respond to all three cryptographic pillars. And that's why I'm really excited about Quantropi, is I think it's certainly the only thing that I've seen out there that is attacking the problem as a permanent forever solution versus what's a quick fix for this one thing, or what's an idea that can't be implemented.
A finger in the dike. That sounds like a really good place to take a time out. We're going to pause real quick for a commercial run, and we'll pick it back up. I'd love to hear some of the impacts on cryptography, the cryptocurrencies, and wallets in that regard as well with some of this stuff when we come back for the break. So everybody stay tuned, and Ken's going to keep enlightening us on some of this post-quantum cryptography and the plans.
We'll be back in a flash. Right, and we're back with Ken from Quantropi enlightening us. And I was called out for my background being the wrong way. Hopefully it's fixed, and I believe it is. So to whoever was calling me out on that, thank you. Oh, and we actually did have a quick question, and from the chat here. For those that don't know, Y2Q, can you summarize it in a nutshell what it is?
I'm sorry, that's a great question. I should have said this earlier. Y2Q is shorthand actually for years to quantum. And this is I guess the critical aspect of that is years. We've talked about this for a really long time, not that anybody cared, because it was a lot of years. I think it gives the wrong impression in some ways. It gives the right impression. Years to quantum just means how much time do we have until there is a quantum computer that is readily available that has and sorry, but I guess it's a combination of not just the number of qubits, but the fidelity of those qubits, because it's probabilistic. So how you get a sort of signal to noise result, and depending on the fidelity, you have a degree of confidence in the results. So you have to have, and there's a depth of circuitry, like how many qubits can you fit on a chip, and Y2Q suggests that there's this kind of singular threshold where it's all good, and then one day this thing happens, and all of a sudden you can go to Best Buy and buy a quantum computer, and now it's over, everything's cracked. And obviously that's not at all how it's going to work. What's happening is that things are already crumbling, and the smart money is already panicking, in maybe a good way or a bad way, but I think in many ways a good way, because let's say something isn't going to happen for 5 years or 8 years. What's the life cycle of what's the budget cycle of a government? What's the life cycle of an enterprise, or planning cycle of an enterprise? Y2K, people were laboring for years behind the scenes. It's funny, Y2K, I don't know, listeners are maybe too old,
I
too
was
young.
part of it.
Okay, I remember it. A lot of people don't directly today. I hear a lot people saying Y2K, yeah, but really, wasn't that a nothing burger? I mean, a hoax, or nothing really happened in the end. And it's like, well, actually nothing happened, because $100 billion later, there was a lot of work done. A lot of work done. And people don't throw $100 billion at a problem that isn't important, or that they don't believe it. And so this is very similar, where I think what we're gonna see is the dominoes starting to fall. And I think we're already seeing it. If you're on the inside right now, you're seeing it in some of the research that's being done, because the research that's happening just in the last 30, 60 days is starting to say that path is brighter, or that path is shorter, or that path is broader than it was. We can see different ways to the end. And of course, the end is just the beginning, because all it means is it's officially no more secure. That doesn't mean that everyone's stolen all the data there is to steal, or that nothing, everything's been breached. It just means you can't trust it anymore. And if you can't trust it anymore in 10 years, or 5 years, or 2 years, which is probably getting a lot closer to the truth, then why would you trust it now? Like, start preparing yesterday for something that's coming 2 or 5 or even 10 years from now.
I think as you're talking there, Ken, I was just jotting some notes down. From what you're describing here, I see this as kind of a technological arms race, if you will. And when you consider this technology, it almost sounds like a technological Cold War. It's, I have to outspend you, so I have better stuff. I got to get to the answer before you get to the answer, that kind of a thing. What does quantum cost now? If I want to build, okay, I'm going to the Radio Shack and I want to build a quantum computer. What does that cost me? An estimate.
I honestly have no idea. I really have no idea. But it's a great question, because I think the answer is on a huge range, right? So first of all, people, when we talk about Y2Q, we're talking about the so-called commercial availability of the quantum computing capacity to be able to do certain things. It makes it sound like, again, it's something that doesn't exist, and when it does, will know about it because there'll suddenly be ads in the paper or whatever. It's like, it's actually, I'm sure if you're a government, certainly the Chinese government, if you want a quantum computer, you probably already have one. You know, it's probably not pretty, but you could cobble one together. You know, lots of people have quantum computers. IBM's putting them out, and you know, has great plans for better ones. It's not a problem with the paradigm. The problem is that it's still under development. So the computing power, the quantum computing power, is subject to these different parameters or different axes, if you like. They can all be adjusted like levers, right? So one of the recent experiments that was just done in Germany, the impression that we get is they used a kind of basic quantum computer that you could buy for I don't know how much, you know, and just bring into the lab and start using, whether that's IBM or someone else. And what that's ignoring is the innovation gap. And you can optimize these things. You can optimize anything for a task, right? So your, you know, the computer that you bring in to run the initial experiment isn't at all the computer that you could tune to do the actual task or you know, mission that you set it out to do. In the same way, you know, 70 years ago, the electric car was just as promising as the fossil fuel vehicle. It took 70 years for the other to catch up because of the money we poured into subsidies for one and not the other. It's same as like Betamax and VHS. Guess what? We all ended up using DVDs. But we actually think about it the same way. We're like PQC versus QKD versus true for trust, uncertainty, entropy as a complete cryptographic solution. We think that we're going to go through a bunch of different iterations here, and we'll figure out in the end that you can't cut corners. You've got to actually tackle the paradigm, not the, you know, the symptoms.
You guys can't be the only people in this space. I mean, this is, it seems like the problem set's a pretty big one from a global perspective. How many other Canadian companies do you partner with? Anyone in Europe? A little bit about your just industry would be immensely helpful in understanding further unpacking some of the stuff.
I mean, we actually partner with a company out of Australia called Quintessence Labs. They build the actual pizza box that delivers the pseudo random that we then apply an algorithm to. Essentially, it's a bit like Walter White and you know, Breaking Bad. It's like ours is, it's 96.8% pure or whatever, because we have a whitening algorithm. But we're partnering with a company to develop that, because we're just the software. You know, there has to be hardware infrastructure underneath. One of the things that we're very proud of is that you don't need to create a whole new hardware infrastructure for us. You don't have to make a big investment in new hardware or new infrastructure to support KeySpace. Our flagship product is a platform that supports encryption and decryption and you know, product development through streaming quantum entropy, or entropy as a service, quantum entropy as a service. You don't need you know, to set anything up. We could actually be up and running this afternoon with something like that, depending on what you want to do with it. But there are a lot of other folks getting very close to the problem from different angles. We have direct competitors. We have indirect competitors. We don't feel like we have a full-on, you know, comparable model competitor. because of this true thing. And that's not to say that one can't appear tomorrow, because it's very simple. We're just saying you need the whole meal. Like, you can't just have, one course or two courses. Got to have all three, or else your problem is only 1/3 or 2/3 solved. It's not a I can protect your data at rest, but what about your data in motion? I can protect your data at rest and your data in motion, but if your keys aren't strong enough, then what good is any of that? So we feel very comfortable right now that we own a space. I'm not sure anyone understands that, but that's a different issue. It's a marketing problem, but we feel very comfortable that we are differentiated today. But I can't imagine that that's going to last. To be honest with you, I don't see that lasting, because I think what's really changed in the last 24 and 36 months is 24 and 36 months ago, this conversation that we're having right now would not have happened. And it would not have happened because you would have said either, huh? Or you would have said, oh yeah, I get it. And I really think that's totally legit. But do we have to be worried yet? I don't think so. Where's the sense of urgency? We're selling umbrellas on a sunny day, right?
Yeah.
Except that if you're in our space, all of a sudden it's not sunny anymore. The clouds are on the horizon. And 2 years ago, it was sunny even where we are. And 2 years from now, it's going to be cloudy even where you are.
I would think perspective lends a lot of preference to what protocols that you go about lining up. Earlier, you had mentioned there's a couple different protocols or algorithmic protocols that you could apply in these instances after the 256, the AES 256 goes, kaputsky. It doesn't have a set design solution. So from the competitive perspective, everybody's going to see that problem set differently. So they would come up with their preference for how they wanted to go about solving it. I'm just curious about.
Yeah,
that.
but that's where I think the standards do come back into play, is that you can't just this stuff is important, right? We can't just try things and take everything at its word. We're very confident that we're going to be part of the digital signature NIST competition or standards shortlist over the coming months, and also that we're going to see the whole PQC thing reopened, and so we feel really strongly that we'll be successful with that kind of validation. I think the other thing is that you'll start to see a lot of other kinds of validation coming into play, where different people are looking at the math and saying it makes sense. I state that it makes sense. I aver that it makes sense, because make no mistake about it. At the end of the day, it's like, how do you prove? And we've had people ask us all the time, like, how do we know this works? Like,
I was just about to ask that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's in a sense, it's the $50 trillion question, because it's like, how do we know it works? Well, there are lots of great ways that you could be confident that it works, because I can show you the math that essentially says, hey, can you guess 2 times 9 to the 18th 4 times in a row correctly? I don't think so, right? Can you pick the right grain of sand out of a ball of sand the size of the earth? I don't think so. It's like, it's infinite, and this is our math. It's like the NP hard stuff about, it's a really hard math problem. That's just not our math. That math doesn't work on us. Our thing is infinite. In fact, you not only have to pick, 2 times 9 to the 18th 4 times in a row, but if you guessed, which is probably your best bet, and you got it wrong, you got to do it again. You don't even get to cross that off the list, because we've shuffled the balls again in the interim. So you have to guess it out of the same number of odds. You don't even get to take one single odd away. So all those things I think are happening. But the bottom line is, to your point, there is no way except to say, well, it's been now 20 years and no one's cracked it, or it's been 30 years and no one's cracked it, or we've waited 100 years and no one's cracked it. Because if it really is uncrackable, then you have to trust in the math that says it is. And I think we're going to end up having a lot of trust because we'll have a lot of people supporting it. But it is a vexing problem. But I think that it's kind of like the Mike Tyson thing. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. This is the same thing. It's like we can all trust RSA 2048, or we can trust AES or whatever all day long until it doesn't work anymore. And then we better start trusting something else.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about Moore's law and its disapplication. If you read theoretical physicists like Michio Kaku, who basically hypothesizes that Moore's law flattens out by 2022, and you start looking at what the competition is for quantum, whether it's protein computers, DNA computers, what have you in that realm. You like you said 36 months ago, that's basically 1.5 cycles of Moore's law since we couldn't have this conversation until now. And that's exponential decay. There's only so much you can do with the silicon chip. There's only so much space on that thing. And I think, this year potentially, and maybe next 5 years, it becomes irrelevant. So what you're talking about in the quantum side of town, I think there's competition out there in different, like a DNA or a protein computer, et cetera. But I think we're going to squeeze as much of that technology as we can due to cost initially. And then we're gonna finally go, we just can't do it. We got to go this way.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that does take us back to this idea of the big idea versus whittling away at the engineering, right? And one of the things that we're so keen on with Quantropi, with Keyspace, is that if you want a really secure key today, you've got to keep making longer certificates, keep making larger keys, and none of that really is a problem. It's trivial, I think, if you're on a laptop. This gets to blockchain and some of the decentralized stuff we were talking about in the digital wallet. I mean, none of that's a problem if you're on a laptop, but if it's your Ring doorbell or your pacemaker or your your fridge or your iWatch, anything with a small processor and limited resources for power and limited compute power, you need something that is a couple of K, not 4 megs for a key. And just to put that into perspective, Google.com requires 64,000 keys a second, and that's just one site. It's a big site, but that's just one site. So think about how much streaming there, and there are 11 billion devices, iPhones and Androids and whatever out there. I mean, every single one of those is vulnerable in a minute when AES and RSA fall away.
It's one of those.
Probably a good place to hang that conversation up. We got to get you out of here, Ken. We really appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing the wealth of knowledge and helping us get a little bit smarter about quant key distribution and post-quant cryptography, quite honestly. I mean, very interesting, relevant in the space that we're in.
Great conversation.
Well, thanks so much.
Oh,
it was
absolutely.
really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for
Really
coming on, Ken.
appreciate you.
Very much.
All right.
Stay warm up there in the north.
Wish James well for us. Sorry we missed him.
Yes.
I will. You betcha. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. We're back. How's it going? Whoa, my mind blown.
Yep.
Crazy. I didn't even know what it was. So that question, to be honest, guys, I don't know if you saw, that was me. I was like, wait, you guys are talking about all this Y2Q, YQ2, and I'm like, what's Y2Q? So I had to ask.
That was that. Nope.
Years to quantum, I get it. So they're just worried about whoever starts getting these quantum computers just hacking through anything.
I also want to point out, man, Sean, you were flexing your IT knowledge.
I know. Look at you.
Man, you were talking about some pretty interesting stuff, man.
Oh no, I just know a few big words to impress.
I don't know, man. That was impressive.
Enough to be dangerous.
Hey, man, Google GPT.
Well, not now. I am, man. I've never. Embarrassingly, I've never heard it was protein.
Protein chips? What the heck's a protein chip?
Protein DNA computers, etc.
Is that like artificial intelligence that uses? I mean, that's a deep dive. We can go on.
You're talking a lot about speed. It's in the end, it's a 1 or a 0, right? So I do a lot of the. I'm on the geekish side. I do like Michio Kaku as a theoretical physicist, and I try to read as much of his stuff as I can. Though I understand, a fraction of it. It really gets you to thinking about, sort of what's next, and it's all theoretical.
Right.
But
it's just all speed. It's just how fast can you process a 1 or a 0?
It's the kind of
it all comes down to ones and zeros. And then you got quantum, right?
Yeah.
So
is quantum not ones and zeros anymore?
We know it as binary, 1 or 0, but quantum takes it one step beyond that. Things change as you manipulate them.
You know what? The kind of thing that keeps you awake at night. If you ever read Ray Kurzweil or ever watch any documentary about him, man, it's one of those things you can't fall asleep at night because your mind starts to race.
Yeah, caffeine does that to me now.
Yeah, well, that caffeine just gets my baseline. That's how I feel about caffeine nowadays. Man, that was interesting. Oh, Sean, man, you've been doing some research, man. You've been doing some homework.
Jeez, don't pat me on the back too much. I'll get a big head. Look, it's all right. I've grown my hair already.
Oh, man.
Gentlemen, this was a fun one. This was good.
It was.
This was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
great job producing, sir.
Hey, I try. And we're coming up to that hour. Is there anything else before we sign off here that anyone wants to get off their chest?
Jimmy, we miss you. I know you're on a boat. He's flying a constant cruise on the ocean.
Thanks for calling me when you stopped in Miami. Thanks, man. Didn't call me.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're on a boat, man. We still got to find out if Armando's catfishing us all, man. Is there really Armando?
Well, Sean, Lucas, Eric, thank you so much. Warriors, week 58. You've been with us from the if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you. If you're new, thank you. If you left for a little bit but you want to come back, thank you. We're here. We've been here for 58 weeks. That was just a show. Oh my God, we've been here much longer than that. So really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you for the support, and thank you for Jimmy for teaching me how to use this thing. I didn't mess up, hopefully too much, a little bit, but I think we're good to go.
We're good.
Guys,
awesome.
Good night. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks, Al. See you.
Late.
Forge greatness, this is what you need. Next level marketplace with the NFT. Music, podcasts, movies, and more. Crypto games, take it to the next level for sure. Or system, If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Or system, If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. To my movie makers and musicians, time to level up. Bring your content, even all my game developers. We got movie streaming, music streaming, so you wanna be in the mix. This ain't no big production company. Over 25,000 or users, yes indeed. Only charging 2.3% sales fee. Own all your music, all your games, own your future. Set your own terms. This is how you do it. You need or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Or system. If you buy the NFT, this is what you're missing. Let's go. Forge greatness.